Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are diving into the architecture of spiritual inquiry. You know, in a world where we can just instantly Google literally anything, the realm of faith often leaves us staring at these massive mysteries we can't quite solve. Well, we're going to look at why that's actually by design, and how the ancient wisdom of King Solomon models a brilliant, highly active framework for our own spiritual searching.
All right, so let's jump right in with a massive paradox a lot of us face. If you've ever felt completely overwhelmed by a lack of exhaustive proof for your faith, you've probably wondered, is this a flaw in my faith? Or, wait, is it actually proof that the system is working perfectly? See, our modern minds are hardwired to demand comprehensive empirical data for absolutely everything. But when we're talking about an infinite creator, demanding those kinds of exhaustive answers can actually create a massive roadblock to true understanding.
To flip this from a stressful intellectual exercise into a really dynamic relational pursuit, we are going to hit a few key milestones. We'll cover the modern epistemic crisis, look at two distinct ways of knowing, define the boundary of divine mystery, dig deeply into Solomon's blueprint for inquiry, unfold the promise plan, and finally, look at the active pursuit of wisdom.
Starting off with Section 1, the modern epistemic crisis.
Authors Josh and Sean McDowell completely nailed this when they identified the study paradox. It's this incredibly common thing where the deeper you investigate God in the Bible, the more acutely you hit a wall. You suddenly recognize your own human finitude. Your brain simply has a limit. But the real beauty here is that hitting that wall isn't an intellectual deficiency. Actually, scratch that. It's more like a requirement. It is the crucial first step in any authentic spiritual investigation. Honestly, if you aren't hitting that wall, you probably aren't digging deep enough.
Moving to Section 2. Let's talk about two ways of knowing, and why our modern toolkit kind of makes this paradox feel worse than it really is.
Think about the post-Enlightenment secular framework. It basically tries to put God in a glass box, relying on autonomous reason and empirical dissection. It's treating the infinite creator of the universe like a lab specimen. The Apostle Paul in 1 Corinthians literally calls this approach foolishness when you apply it to the divine. Contrast that with the ancient Hebraic framework. It's a completely different ballgame. It's relational, it's embodied, it relies on covenantal faith and obedience. It treats God as a king on a throne, not a frog on a dissection table. The absolute key takeaway here is that you simply cannot demand exhaustive answers from an infinite creator using a secular, closed system. Secular naturalism demands everything be empirically verified, which objectifies God. Hebraic epistemology, on the other hand, requires a covenantal posture. It involves our senses, our experiences, and ultimately it yields what we call transformed knowing. So true understanding means adopting epistemic trust. We have to trust God's character even when we're missing complete data. If we want to understand the biblical texts, we got to learn to think like the biblical authors.
Which brings us to Section 3, the boundary of divine mystery. If we can't know everything, we really need to understand why our limitations are actually a brilliant design feature.
Think about the biblical concept of the cosmic temple. There is a definitive boundary line separating Yahweh's sacred, uncreated omniscience from our human creaturely finitude. And here is the mind-blowing part. Human finitude was not caused by the fall. God declared it very good back in Genesis 1. Our limits were designed to keep us in a healthy relational dependence on Him as His royal priestly stewards. You were literally designed to not know everything.
You know, Scripture actually normalizes this boundary. Deuteronomy 29:29 says, "The secret things belong to the Lord our God, but the things that are revealed belong to us." It's so reassuring, right? Incomplete answers aren't a failure. It just means we don't have the cosmic vantage point of uncreated omniscience. Our job isn't to hack the system to discover the secret things. It's to faithfully steward what has been revealed to us.
All right, Section 4, Solomon's blueprint for inquiry. Since we've established our boundaries, how do we actually search for what we can know? This is the core focus of our explainer today.
King Solomon steps in here and gives us an absolute masterclass in Proverbs chapter 2 on how to truly model spiritual searching. And spoiler alert, Solomon doesn't treat spiritual searching as some cozy passive afternoon read. He models it as intense, grueling labor. He gives us 4 highly active verb-driven steps. Step 1 is receiving and storing, having an open posture to divine instruction. Step 2 is inclining and applying, like literally stretching out your heart and tuning your ear. Step 3 is crying out, a vocal emotional petition for insight. And step 4 is seeking and searching. Solomon uses ancient mining imagery here. We're talking dirt under your fingernails, sweat on your brow excavation for a silver mine. To find wisdom, Solomon makes it crystal clear. We have to exert serious effort.
And he builds this profound if-then structure. If you receive, if you incline,
If you cry out, if you seek, then you will understand. But we need a critical theological safeguard here. Our human exertion doesn't manufacture the truth. It's simply the required, sweaty posture we take to receive wisdom as a sovereign grant, a free gift from the Lord. Our covenantal exertion just positions us to receive the crown of wisdom from God's hand.
Moving into Section 5, Unfolding the Promise Plan. When we take Solomon's blueprint of active, humble inquiry and apply it to how we read Scripture, an incredible, unified picture emerges.
Looking through that Hebraic lens, we uncover what theologian Walter C. Kaiser Jr. calls the promise plan. Instead of projecting our modern artificial grids onto the text to make it make sense to us, we see a single, organic, progressively revealed divine intention. God is systematically reversing cosmic rebellions and restoring sacred space, all while keeping his concrete promises totally intact.
When you track this historically, it is remarkably cohesive. It moves from the Edenic seed in Genesis, right through the Abrahamic covenant, the Sinai and Davidic lines, into the prophetic renewal, all the way up to the messianic climax in the 1st century with the incarnate Messiah. By sitting patiently with the text, exactly like Solomon modeled for us, we see God doesn't erase his concrete promises to ethnic Israel. He fulfills them while grafting in the nations. It is a masterful, organic unity.
Finally, Section 6, the pursuit of wisdom. What does this all mean for us today, practically speaking?
Well, whether you're leading a church, studying in seminary, or just trying to make sense of your faith at home, embracing this Hebraic posture changes everything. In seminaries, it means moving beyond just pure doctrine into communal, humble practice. In our congregations, we need liturgies that honor both the mind and our relational dependence on God. And individually, and this is a real game changer, try journaling your unresolved questions not as sources of doubt, but as active invitations to depend on God. For apologetics, it means shifting away from trying to mathematically prove God exists, and instead presenting a historically anchored, narratively rich worldview. Embracing this turns the stress of unanswered questions into an invitation for deeper communion.
So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. Ask yourself, are you demanding empirical answers from God, or are you actively searching for his wisdom? If you've been demanding exhaustive answers and feeling endlessly frustrated by the divine mystery, maybe it's time to pick up Solomon's blueprint, embrace your finitude, and start joyfully digging for wisdom instead.